So loud. All right, thank you everyone that has taken their time out. It was a really dark daylight savings day. I am Tanya Williamson. I am the outreach volunteer coordinator with the Land Bank. You are in the 2022 fall community conversation. This is a countywide. It's our second official fall countywide Zoom. So thanks for joining us. And the format, we switched it up a little this year, more meeting format so folks can see one another or see who's in the room with us. I'd like to take this moment to introduce our commissioners, our volunteer commissioners. And I know it's, at least on my screen, kind of small. So when I say your name, if you could please raise your hand to bring attention to your square, that would be great. Orca Space, we have Chair Sandy Friel and cohort Brian Weiss.
Hello.
Hello. For San Juan Island base, there's David Myland,
Hey.
Jim Skog, and we have Mike Pickett, but he's sitting in the ferry line right now. So he's got a picture of steers, but you'll see him in the monthly meeting next week. Lopez base, we have Miles Becker. And it looks like Krista Campbell. She was going to try to call in, but it doesn't appear she's made it so far, but you'll see her at the next monthly meeting on Friday as well. To start off the meeting, we'll have Director Lincoln Bormann with a brief update, a little bit about acquisitions and process. And then after that it's finished, we'll open it up to questions about his presentation or general questions in general. That's a bit of a repeat. Logistics note. If you would please raise your hand so it'll go up in your little Hollywood square so I'll know who to call on. I also have the chat open for myself. So if you want to type your question into the chat, I would be happy to read it aloud as well. And I've got a piece of paper. I'll try to keep track of everybody as they pop up. And I think that's all my housekeeping. So I will hand it over to Lincoln for the update.
Great, thanks, Tanya. I'm going to share my screen here. All right, so here we go. We start with this acknowledgement that we reside on and care for the ancestral lands and waters of the Coast Salish people who have stewarded and called this place home since time immemorial. And let us honor inherent Aboriginal and treaty rights that have been passed down from generation to generation. So this meeting, we're going to cover all things acquisition, basically. We'll look at it from a few different angles. We're going to talk about the process of how it is the Land Bank Commission selects projects to proceed with, and we're going to talk about the process involved and a little bit about why we do it, and then wrap up by showing you some of the acquisitions we've done this year so you can see what we've been up to. So starting out, this is our mandate. This is what we work off of out of county code and state enabling legislation. You can see it's quite broad. It's got a number of elements in there, but it's all about preserving things in perpetuity. I think if you break down these elements, you can really distill them down into four basic things. The first being ecosystem integrity. We're looking to protect how it is that nature works and keep it functioning well. Preserving rural character and landscapes. Community health is also very important, particularly as we've got more and more people using these outdoor areas and that the demand has increased, and also agricultural sustainability. When we do conservation, open space conservation, there are a couple of different things going on. So we're looking both at scale and at type. And so starting on the left-hand side of the screen with scale, we function at a lot of different scales, from large landscape, where we might be looking at trying to preserve connectivity, ecological connectivity, or ecological resilience in the face of climate change, or redirect growth. And examples of that might be Katy Mountain there on the bottom, or Turtleback, another great example. On the other hand, we also look at specific features and work to protect those. These aren't mutually exclusive. So you can see Turtleback probably fits into both of these categories. But for specific features, there are a lot of other kinds of things which we do try and protect. Things like shoreline access. You can see that shot of East Sound Waterfront Park on Orcas, and also neighborhood open space. So there's Driggs Park and Friday Harbor. Moving over to the right-hand side to type, we basically have two different ways of protecting properties. One through conservation easement of private property. And we really start there. That's as we're directed to do through the ordinance, that trying to keep properties in private ownership is something we definitely investigate with each of these transactions. And conservation easements are great in that they typically they limit the development that can happen on private property, but they preserve those lands which are typically working farms or forests. And we get great rural views and character, and also the products that come from those properties through those conservation easements. However, a lot of times that's not possible. The owner may just not want to do a conservation easement and may want to sell the property outright. And also, conservation easements are limited in certain respects. Typically, there's no public access, and we've a limited ability to actively manage the property. So in these cases, we're looking at outright ownership. So we're wanting to be able to provide places for people to go. We're wanting to be able to do that active management of the landscape, particularly if we're looking at resilience in the face of climate change, things like that, or protection of rare species or ecological communities. And also for agricultural lands, holding those and leasing them out to private farmers is something that we do as well. Probably our flagship of that type of operation is Coffelt Farm on Orcas Island. Moving on to process. So how is it that this whole mysterious thing works? Well, the Land Bank Commission really is the body, and they're all volunteers, but they're looking to pick particular projects. And so we start with some of these underlying documents. The initial one being the San Juan County Open Space and Conservation Plan, which you see in the back there. That's from 1990, still relevant today. Things have changed a bit, but that's still something that we do look at. And the Parks, Trails, Natural Areas plans, which we update regularly. There's a new an update coming out in December. We're now calling it the Recreation, Open Space, and Stewardship Plan. So you'll be seeing that soon. Also, our Habitat Conservation Plan, which we did a number of years ago. And we've also done some surveys. This one was done in conjunction with the terrestrial managers group, really looking at residents' attitudes toward tourism and visitor management, in particular, with particular regard to natural areas. So we take those documents and we feed that into this matrix, which you see here on the right-hand side, and those variables that the commission considers in each case. So you can see there are a number of them, and I am going to flip to this, which is, these are the 3 projects that we've done this year. And so you can see how each of these fits into that matrix, which is just designed to help the commission really make decisions. With the issue really being the reality that we can't do everything. We can't do close to everything. So we often have to make hard choices. And so this matrix is just designed to help make that decision a little bit clearer. So here are the three below. I'm going to talk about each of these in turn. I'm not going to go through all of these categories, but you can see some of them. We're looking at the overall cost or size, or whether we've got partners, the ecological values of the property, or scenic, or connective, either ecologically or recreationally, general recreational value, the development threat, and then agriculture is another element that we often look at. So here is the acquisition process put together as a flow chart. And once again, I'm not going to jump through all these polygons to explain to you each what they each are, but I do think that the categories or general groupings are important here. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. With the yellow really being project ranking. So that's where we're taking materials and trying to figure out which projects really rise to the top. So that starts with staff scoring, and then the commission looks at that, and moving into the green category, where this is all about where this process passes through the Land Bank Commission and also the County Council at various stages, and due diligence as well. And then the blue highlights where there are opportunities for public participation. So you can see that at a number of different points in this process, there is good opportunity for people to participate. Most of these projects are talked about multiple times in public meetings, and eventually in public hearings as part of budgets. And then that pumpkin color basically is decision points where the commission's approving a project to go forward, or the budget is recommended by the commission to the council. The council passes the budget, eventually leading to closing on a property. Framing this as a list, this is kind of how it breaks down, where we start with a staff assessment, then the commission provides a go-ahead to proceed with the project. So we start negotiations and start our due diligence process, leading hopefully to a purchase and sale agreement. Once we have that, it comes back to the commission. And that's really the point where the public has opportunity to hear about what's going on. A lot of times prior to having a purchase and sale agreement, we need to talk about projects in executive session so that there's not a risk of increasing the cost to the community of actually acquiring the property. So once we have that agreement, it becomes public. Now we're still in the due diligence period, so it's not a done deal. We have an opportunity to not move forward with it if that should happen, but the public has a good chance to weigh in at that stage. And then again, as it moves forward and the commission approves and recommends a budget with a public hearing, obviously people have the ability to comment at that point. Then it will move on to the council, where a project summary with a budget goes for their consideration. They provide ultimate approval for that budget, which will include the project. And again, that happens at a public hearing. And the last opportunity for people to participate is really the deed acceptance hearing, where the council resolves to accept the deed for the project, and it goes to closing. And so that's really the process that we use. So next up, I wanted to touch on kind of why why we do this. We often get questions about when are you going to be done, or why is this important? So I'm just going to provide you with a few reasons and just a little bit of context. So one of the things to remember right at the present moment is that development is occurring faster than ever in the islands. In 2022, we'll see over 1,000 residential development permits approved for new construction. That's roughly double from a few years ago. So development really is picking up quite intensely in the islands. There's been an influx of more year-round residents due to the pandemic and climate change. And with that, there's been a big increase in the use of natural areas pretty much across the board. We've just seen many people out there, more than we have in the past. And so it's important to kind of keep pace with that and look at acquisitions to provide opportunities for people. This is a survey I mentioned before, back from 2019, so it's pre-pandemic. But I think if anything, these have gotten a little bit more intense. And this just shows public support for trails in particular, but also for acquiring properties. So we had roughly 60% of residents who were in favor of acquiring more properties and different types of properties for people to use. And at the bottom there, that's just showing you that by contrast, people are not terribly thrilled with the idea of more development to accommodate increased visitation, increasing facilities, etc. And that kind of points you back to the need to have more places for people to go, but not continuously develop more facilities or parking and things like that. So there's this also, when we hear this, when are you going to be done question, it's really important to put that in context. And so here, what you're looking at is the percent of public land in Western Washington counties. And what you can see is we are last on this score, and by quite a bit, really, for most of these areas. We're about tied with Island County, but if you look at Whatcom or Clallam or any of these other counties, including King County, where 46% of the land is in public ownership, you can see that we're way behind that. We're never going to reach those numbers of public land ownership. We don't. It's just not going to be remotely possible, but it also shows that we've got a lot of work to do to try and provide more for the people who are living here and visiting here. It's also important for us to think about the impact on your taxes of our acquisitions. And here again, context is really important. So the total taxable value of real estate in the county is over 9.5 billion. With the new assessments coming out, that is likely to go over 10 billion, where the taxable value of the land bank properties is roughly 40 million. Well, how can that be so low? Because we do own a significant amount of property. However, 75% of what we buy is in preferred tax classifications, things like designated forest land, where owners are paying pennies on the dollar, or it's already publicly owned but not protected. Places like the DNR, Department of Natural Resource, school trust lands, and we've worked to protect those. Places like Lopez Hill and Ogden South, and also Mitchell Hill on San Juan, which is now part of the national park. But no taxes were being paid on those properties. And so the taxable value of land bank properties is low. And then the tax rate across the state, if you compare, you can see that we actually have the lowest tax rate, average tax rate in the state significantly. So if you had the same value property in other counties, you'd pay more. For example, in Island County, you'd pay 25% more on that property in taxes. In Whitman County, your taxes would be double on that same value property. We also go through the exercise of looking at what might happen if we added our properties back onto the tax rolls. If we sold them all off, what would that mean, assuming taxes would be reduced to accommodate that? And really what it means is for a $500,000 property, you might save $15 a year. And so it's really pretty low. I also wanted to share this slide with you because I do think it's important. There's often a lot of confusion about this. And this is something that comes from the assessor's office, just to show acreage by use across the county. So here, what you can see is, first of all, the vast majority of the county is privately owned, 84%. That might have gone down a little bit, to maybe 83%. But of that, more than half is taxed at a fair market value. And then on the left-hand side, you can see some of the preferred classifications that private properties are in. So designated forest land, current use of farm and ag, or exempt, which would include senior or disabled exemptions, things like that. So people are paying reduced taxes for those kinds of properties. And then at the lower left, you can see the publicly owned portion of this. So that's 16%, maybe we're up to 17 at this point. Land bank acreage is a little bit over 5,000 now, but still, the vast majority of the county is privately owned, and a lot of it is taxed at fair market value. So now I just wanted to move on to what we've done this year and highlight some of our acquisitions so you can see some of the places and how our process has played out and what we've been able to acquire this year. I'm going to start on Orcas Island with the old Glenwood Inn property. This was a defunct inn. We were able to purchase this earlier this year in partnership with the Preservation Trust. We're now calling it the North Shore property. That's kind of an interim name. We'll be going through a whole naming process here in the next, I don't know, 6 months maybe. But this property is now protected. Here's an aerial, so you can see there's the North Shore Preserve. Also, you can see it's one property away from the Point Doty Department of Natural Resources Natural Area Preserve there. So this is the very northwestern tip of Orcas Island. And this is the property itself. You can see some of the features, a lot of forested area and a lot of shoreline. And equally as important, there's access down to that shoreline. This is high bank property, but there's a road that went down to service some cabins on the beach there. We'll be removing those, but that road or access point will remain, probably as a trail to get down to the beach. And this is a significant amount of waterfront, a third of a mile, which is major for Orcas in particular. People in San Juan and Lopez may not realize that they've got a lot of shoreline access, but that's not the case for Orcas Island. So this is really a big addition for them. It's also an important area for salmon recovery. So maintaining those near shore processes, the bluff that erodes the beach, that's providing habitat for spawning forage fish, and the interplay between that and the near shore eelgrass beds and other things really is a key thing. This is an important area for Chinook salmon in particular. And this is more of context. So you can see the property up in the north, up in the top left, and some of our other preserves. So Crescent Beach is here, and also Judd Cove down here, two other shoreline access properties that the land bank owns, together with some conservation easements, but this gives you another sense of what we've been doing. And here's just an aerial shot kind of pieced together so you can see it in relation to Point Doty, and also see that shoreline, pretty rugged north shore of Orcas there. And there's a lot of shoreline access. We don't really, it's pretty hard to say whether we could actually create some access over to Point Doty by the tideland. We'll be looking at that, but it is going to be somewhat difficult because the tide comes in and you can get caught on that beach. So we'll have to look hard at really what the opportunities are there. And this is just a shot of the beach looking to the west, and that's Saturna Island in the background. So you're looking across Boundary Pass toward the Gulf Islands in Canada. All right, moving on. Sorry, last one. I just wanted to throw this up there that once we get properties, that is where the work begins. And here we've been using the Youth Conservation Corps to do some invasive removal with our field assistant Andrew there on the left. So just a nice shot of kids out there in the woods doing some work. Okay, Lopez Island is next, and this is a property in the very southeast corner of the island around Watmau Bay. And you can kind of see how this jumps out at you, as most of the property around the bay had been protected. This is really the last unprotected piece. When it was coming on the market, we had to move pretty quickly, and we had to outcompete some private buyers who were very interested in it. But this is the last puzzle piece of Watmau. The bay now is completely protected. It's a highly significant property, small, but a lot of waterfront. You can see the scallop shoreline there, and a couple of those pocket beaches, which are really important for forage fish spawning. There's a long piece of shoreline, 1,900 feet. Also very important for salmon and salmon recovery. You can see the kelp beds off there to the right on this slide. That's something I'll show you another shot of in a minute. But other features of this property, it has an extensive coast salish midden on it, and also the oldest house on Lopez, a cabin built in the 1870s by Sampson Chadwick. So moving down in the presentation, these are just some photos of that property. Really pretty stunning spot. So you can see the cabin on the left-hand side, and then the beaches. That's the northern facing one on the right, and then on the bottom, that is kind of an east-facing beach with Boulder Island in the background. That's part of the San Juan Islands National Wildlife Refuge. So pretty amazing spot. And this is just looking from Watmau Head on the property back toward Watmau Bay. There's Chadwick Hill. And then this last shot, the aerial, which shows the property quite clearly, and also those kelp beds, again, which are so important, and its connection over to Watmau Bay. We'll be working to get this property open to the public. It's probably going to take us a couple of years, but that's the direction it's going. As with the North Shore property, it takes time to get these properties open. There's a lot to do. So it's going to be a process, but we will get there. Last, San Juan Island, moving to Katy Mountain, where we purchased 40 acres from Steve and Sarah Hauschka. And this property is at the top of Katy Mountain. So it's adjacent to our existing preserve. It has spectacular views and some really significant ecological components as well, with mature Douglas firs, Gary oaks, and some open bulb, herbaceous bulb areas. This is the preserve, the context of the Katy Mountain Preserve without the Hauschka property, 430 acres. With it, the preserve was increased to 470. And so you can see that addition right there circled in red. This is another one which has not been open to the public, but will be in the next couple of years. And the access point will come off of Three Corner Lake Road, which is a county road here. We'll be creating a trailhead somewhere along that road, which will allow people to access the top of the mountain, but also continue to the west and across the Roche Harbor Highland property to English Camp. And this just gives you more of a context. So moving from here across to English Camp and also north all the way to Roche Harbor. The Roche Harbor Highland property is open to the public, but it's only open by permission. So that's something else we'll be looking at, potentially permanently protecting that area and securing that access. Also in this slide, you can see some of our other properties of Beaverton Marsh here. This is Mount Grant, adjacent to the town of Friday Harbor watershed property, and then the University of Washington Labs property. So just a little bit of context in the northern part of San Juan. And this is the view off of that Hauschka property looking north to Turtleback. Really just kind of a breathtaking one. So looking forward to people getting a chance to see that. And this is another shot really on the western part of Katy Mountain, taken by Tom Small. That's looking off to the Gulf Islands and Vancouver Island. Really amazing spots out there. So just it's going to be a great opportunity for people to get a chance to see those places. And all of that will be coming in the next couple of years. So with that, I'm going to leave you with this picture of spring, recognizing that we're just moving into winter here, give you a little bit of hope that it won't last forever. And if you get onto Yellow Island in the spring, this is what you'll see. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to open it up for questions.
Thanks, Lincoln. During your presentation, there was a question from Tom Reed, so I marked that as our first. And let's see, I gotta find it over there. I think it's when you brought up the slide that had the different varieties of choices regarding acquisitions or properties. Yep. And his question was, the Higgins Preserve was listed as L for create public access to the pre. And we're assuming this means that public access to the preserve was a low priority for the acquisition. And he was curious as to why, or if that's what the slide meant.
Sure. So sometimes we're looking at properties specifically because they can provide access to existing conserved areas. A good example of that is Katy Mountain, when we were able to purchase the northern part of that property, which has the county road running through it. We've owned property on Katy Mountain for years, a couple of decades or more, and not really had a good opportunity to provide public access because we didn't have any connection to a county road. Katy Mountain Road is not suitable for public access. And so that purchase really would rank extremely high because it opened our ability to access the rest of the preserve. In this case, it's a fantastic public access property, but it's really at the end of the trail. Our access to it would come from the existing parking area at Watmow, almost certainly, And there would be a trail that led out to this. So it's a great destination, but the idea of that other criterion was basically whether a property helps us get to something that we already own. So this one's kind of the reverse of that.
And Tom, if that doesn't answer your question, please either raise your hand and let us know or type it in the chat. And then we're open to anyone else that has questions or comments. I've got new glasses, so I apologize if I keep going in and out trying to see if there's any hands being raised or chats. Such a quiet bunch. Oh, I've got one. Here we go. Let's see. So a question from Kathy in the county code. It states that in order to maintain private ownership, the land bank will first look at a conservation easement. Could you talk about any conservation easements this year?
We have not made any conservation easement purchases this year. We did purchase one recently on Lopez, the Double R Bar Ranch in the Center Valley on Lopez. So that's the last one that we've done. We do have a couple of properties where conservation easements might be possible. And as I said, we do consider that, and we do talk to owners about it. Often it's just not consistent with what they're wanting. And if we're really wanting to have public access or things like that, it just does not work out. However, we're always asking that question.
Thank you. Lots of looking around, answering chats.
Well, I just want to say hello to a few people, and I mean, there's a lot of great folks on the call here. Tom Cowan, hello, Tom. Glad to see you're there. And good to see Chris Gadati on the call. Love to hear from you. And I think, well, let's see what happened to Tom Reeve. He pulled off. But just wanted to say hello to some great supporters of the land bank, the rest of you as well. And I think going forward, we're going to be looking at some challenges down the road. And we've got the renewal effort coming up, and probably for 2024. We've also got 3 open positions on the commission come December 31st. So I think that the commission and the land bank as an organization as a whole is going to need to just have some support from longtime supporters with regards to those issues. Anyway, just wanted to say that.
Thanks, Jim. I've got a question from Roger and Anita, which is, how is the land bank working with the Trails Committee on the Old Military Road Trail?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're definitely working quite closely with them, and a big piece of that trail will run through the Katy Mountain Preserve. And our hope is to be able to connect Katy Mountain to the south and keep going. But it's important to note that even with what we've got, we will have access from that center part of the island going all the way up to Roach Harbor. As long as Roach Harbor Highlands allows people through their property, that's something you'll be able to walk on a trail. Going to the south is going to be a little bit more challenging, but we're definitely happy to work with them and hope we can continue making that a reality.
Great. Let's see the next question. Oh, was there someone else? is from Patrick. What is the renewal effort, and will it need public support?
I'll take that
Well-
one. And then Lincoln might want to chime in as well, but yes, the land bank will need public support. It's highly likely, as has happened in the past, that a committee will form of individuals who are land bank supporters and want to support and spread the word about the renewal vote, which we're planning on, or the commission, at least at this point in time, is planning on putting on the ballot in November of 24. So, sometime next year, I would imagine that there will be a gathering of the minds. I plan on being involved. I know that Dave Zaretsky will most likely be involved. I'd love to have any of you other folks that have either not helped but want to help or have helped in the past. So that's the story about the renewal. The sunset date is for the current iteration of the Land Bank Commission is December 31st, 2026. So the thinking is to get it on the ballot in 2024 with the hope of it being renewed, but having a backup plan for the next year, should, God forbid, that be the case. Lincoln?
Yeah, just a little bit more context. So when the land bank was created, it was set up it has to be approved by the public in order, it's collecting the 1% real estate excise tax, basically, that people are voting on. And that has to be done every 12 years, at 12-year increments. It doesn't quite occur on that schedule. Typically that effort happens before the term expires, so that it enables the land bank to plan well if renewal does not happen. So that's the case here. And so the land bank was initially authorized by a vote of the public in 1990. It was reauthorized in 1999 and again in 2011. So this will be the third renewal effort, assuming it takes form. And 2024 does look like a likely year for that to happen. That, I would say, though, it will ultimately be a decision for the committee that forms, which will be independent from the Land Bank Commission and certainly not involving land bank resources to make happen.
Right, and I'll add that I mentioned that I would plan on being involved in the renewal effort. I'm going off the commission on December 31st this year. One of the three that are leaving, two of the others are leaving because of relocations. And so anyway, I won't be part of the commission in working on the renewal effort. However, any commissioners are perfectly, it's fine for them to get involved because they are not county resources, but staff stays out of that stuff.
All right, thanks for that question, Patrick. Let's see, I'm going back up through my list here from Kathy. This is back to conservation easements. Wondering, do owners approach the land bank about conservation easements?
Yeah, they certainly can. It can happen either way, that we're aware of a property and it's an important one, and we talk to the landowner over a period of time. In some cases, that takes years, honestly. In the case of the Double Arbor Ranch on Lopez, it's actually intergenerational. We were able to do the easement finally with the next generation of the Ritchie family. But landowners are definitely they have the opportunity to present things to staff or the commission. Happy to talk to people. Happy to hear from you. Absolutely.
Great. Let's see, so far that's it for questions in the chat. And I don't see a hand raised right now, so I will make a plug for the 3 vacancies. Thanks for the segue, Jim, which is we have been advertising, the land bank has been advertising for the vacancies. One is for District 1, San Juan Island-ish. We have an at-large, and we also have District 3, which is Lopez-ish. So the applications can be found on the San Juan County website, but you can also see there is in our news, or if anyone's interested, you can send me a chat, send me an email, and I can get that information to you to help you with the application process or get it started for you. And I'm sure any of the commissioners would be happy to chat with you as well about their experience. So there's my plug for volunteer commissioners.
And so that's my position. And then we also will be bidding farewell to Miles Becker from Lopez and David Myland from San Juan Island. They're moving onward to bigger and better things.
Well, maybe not better.
Well, maybe bigger. Who knows?
Yes, I have advertised on Lopez Rocks. There was a post a while ago, but I can always put another one up. Thanks, Tracy. I know they sometimes fall to the bottom. Any more questions or comments? That's
I'm just going to call out Chris Gadati for a minute. Seeing him on the call, glad to see Chris. So he's the area manager for Washington State Parks, and that's kind of an interesting project that we're working on now. Next to Spencer Spit on Lopez, we originally we're looking at that as purchasing a conservation easement with state parks owning the underlying fee. That didn't end up working out. We did have an amazing landowner who did a bargain sale to us. So we're ending up holding it, but now we're working with state parks to develop a management plan, since that property is directly connected to Spencer Spit. So kind of turning it on its head, but really will end up being a great project.
Yeah, thanks, Lincoln. This is Chris. Yeah, I totally agree. We're really excited about the partnership out there.
Oh, in trying to fulfill trying to fill the silence that we're experiencing due to the lack of hands coming up, I will call out John Howell, who is on the call. John has facilitated our Land Bank Commission retreats for many years now, and is intimately involved in the work that we do, just as a great retreat facilitator, which is a daunting task. And I just want to thank John for the many years of his involvement on that level.
Nice to see everybody.
Well, it's great to see some of the other people on the call as well. I can tell we've got a number of neighbors to various reserves out there, clearly interested in what we're up to. And also a couple maybe potential commission candidates. So glad to have you all.
Hi, Sandy. You have your hand up.
You're
I just thought maybe since we have some extra time, so your presentation focused on some of our big acquisitions for this year, and people might be wondering, well, what are we doing next? What are our priorities for next year? So maybe you want to speak to that. Just a thought. But Tracy has her hand up, so let Tracy go.
Well, this isn't a question, but just a shout out to the last month of a special speaker series from the Lopez Island Museum that invited Dr. Julie Stein out as the head archaeologist from the Burke Museum to come out and speak to us on Lopez, first at the community center. I missed that, but it was recorded, her presentation about the changing archaeology and the methods, from what I'm remembering. But then she came out to Watmau for a talk the next day. And it was quite interesting, her opinions and her research from the last archaeological research done at Watmau, but she had a lot of knowledge about the original site as well. We got to walk through everything. And even walking down the beach, she reaches down and just picks up a stone, shows us why that was a Coast Salish tool. And then she puts it right back down. She taught us a lot about just if you find anything, that it just needs to stay there. It needs to go back onto the site, potentially to let somebody know. But I learned a lot from her. I was able to record her, and it's not something we're going to publish, that her talk. But if you wanted to reach out to myself or Amy at the Lopez Museum and say you'd really like to learn from Dr. Stein, let us know. We did record it. It was about an hour talk. But that shows you how partnerships between our historical society, the land bank, the National Monument, working together to educate on very interesting subjects.
That's great, Tracy. It also, I think, highlights the fact that we do have properties which have a lot of significance to the Coast Salish peoples, and we'll be looking particularly at that site as to how we can integrate those folks into the process as we move forward with trying to figure out how to manage those areas, really wanting to know what they think is important and what they think needs to be protected. So that's an unfolding process. It's all kind of just really looking forward to seeing how that plays out. I think it will be a great probably series of partnerships there.
Yeah.
I do have a question from, let's see, Roger and Anita in the chat, and it is what about efforts towards sustainable agriculture? Is there anything to report?
Yeah, so we are doing a lot with sustainable agriculture currently. I mentioned Coppelt Farm, where we're actually in the process of finalizing a long-term lease there with the Lum family. And they've been farming at Coppelt now for a couple of years, few years. And we're just looking to make that arrangement a little bit longer term. So they've been doing a great job. Really happy with it. And on San Juan, we do have a number of properties that we do lease out to private farmers. We're always looking for innovative things happening. So one of those is out at Zylstra now, Zylstra Lake Preserve, where we have a lot of area that is hayed. We've got several farmers who are haying it. We're also amending those fields to make sure we're just not mining the nutrients out of the soil, but adding back to it. And that also is used kind of as a haying class for a number of other farmers. So it's a good partnership there. But we're on the lookout too for lessees. We've got a couple of other properties that we're going to be leasing out in the coming year or so. Actually, we just started having grazing out on Beaverton Marsh Preserve after a long hiatus. Phil and Angie Shepherd have been grazing sheep out there this year. And we may be looking at the possibility for doing something more intensive on that property. Also, we'll be looking for a new lessee down at Fraser Homestead on San Juan. But we do keep an eye out for other properties as they come along. So we're interested in talking to people about that.
It's nice to see Fraser got mowed. I know that was kind of hanging out there for a little bit. It's just nice to see that it happened.
Kathy.
Okay, you knew I'd ask something or have some comment to make after you started talking about sustainable agriculture. And I just recently returned from the Quivira Coalition Conference in Denver, Colorado regarding regenerative agriculture. And I would really like to draw attention to the commission to look into Holistic Management International and/or the Savory Institute. They're two organizations that have decision-making processes regarding land management. And when I first bought the farm in 2010, Bruce Gregory offered a course through the Conservation District. And it was, it changed it gave me direction because it's a decision-making process. So both those organizations were present and very active at the conference. There's also a farm that has been popular actually on Fox News and with Joe Rogan, and his name is Will Harris. And he's recently been interviewed because he is a staunch advocate of the Savory Institute in his land management. And he doesn't really say what they want to say, but his videos are available currently. And it's the point that I'm making is that with all this, it's called the radical center, because you have people on both sides of the aisle. We just had a really contentious election yesterday, but yet they come together at this point of understanding land management as a regenerative process, which also cuts your costs, makes it more efficient. It's climate change. It's, helps with climate change. And so I just want to really direct your attention to those things. And I'm happy to answer anybody's questions or talk about it, or give you some of the resources I have. But I just feel like it would be a really good tool in the land bank's tool belt. And I want you to know I am very supportive of the land bank. I'm just very supportive of proper land management styles. And if you can't tell, I believe in conservation easements. So, anyway, thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Anyone else for ag, since we're on the topic, or throw in a new topic? I know Zoom meetings are very exciting. So many every day. Wow. Maybe everyone wants to go out for the almost full moon. I'm gonna screen shifted. Well, I really understand, Sandy, what your monthly meetings are like now, trying to keep an eye on all the little squares. There's a lot going on. Well, I don't have anything else in the chat. It is 6:30. We scheduled to 7. Oh, thank you, John. This is why John is such an amazing facilitator. He reminded me that Sandy had that wonderful question she posed earlier about what's on the horizon for
Right.
Lincoln. Thank you, John.
Yes. So what is on the horizon? Well, first of all, I think it's important for people to understand that our resources are pretty limited, and we did go all out this year trying to get a couple of those properties. So that's going to affect us going forward. without a doubt. We do have a couple of things in the pipeline. I don't know that we're ready to talk about those yet, but I will say that one of the other things we do is try and work with some of the other conservation entities around the county. So we're part of this terrestrial managers group, which is all of the conservation land management agencies in the county. So federal, state, local, nonprofit. And we're working with them to try and help them move forward with some acquisitions. There are some really very interesting possibilities out there, but I think it's all a little premature to get into at this point. But we're hoping we can really leverage some federal and state resources for those folks as well, and make some good things happen. So I know that's a disappointing answer for you, Sandy, but there it is.
No, I was, can you hear me okay? Because
Yeah.
my internet connection is unstable. Okay, everybody else is frozen. I was thinking in terms of, I know we're in a bit of a holding pattern with acquisitions after our big expenditures and loans, but we have some big stewardship projects, and I thought maybe it might be interesting on, you mentioned several preserves that will be opening in the next few years, and it might be good for people to know what some of the steps that we have to go through. Why does it take years?
Absolutely. So yeah, you're absolutely right. We do have a number of really exciting ones coming forward, including the North Shore property, the Higgins property, and Hauschka and the rest of Katy Mountain. So we'll be looking at getting those open in the next couple of years. There's a lot that goes into it. Depends on the preserve. On the North Shore Preserve, there are a lot of dilapidated buildings which will need to come down. So we'll be working through that process. With some of the other ones, it's really a matter of getting some kind of trailhead established, a small parking area. So we'll be doing that at Katy Mountain. We're also working toward getting Beaverton Marsh open from the town side. We just actually opened it off of the Halverson Road side, off of the north side of that property. But one of the exciting things about that is it gives us the potential for trail access from town to a destination out to that marsh. And so that's one we'll be working on this year as well. And then at Mount Grant, we are going to be working quite a bit on the entrance there, probably moving that parking area from the easement area where it is on the neighbor's property onto the preserve, so that we can better control that situation. And just beyond those public access opportunities, we've got an awful lot going on in stewardship of the natural areas, and really looking at and working hard on Gary Oak restoration areas, and looking at this question of climate change and what it might be doing, and what we need to do with some of our forested areas to make sure that they're as resilient as can be. Actually, just today, we had staff out there with Department of Natural Resources folks who are looking at potential cost shares and bringing crews out here to help us with a lot of that work, which should predominantly be forest thinning. So it's really just great to see our state agencies stepping up, and we're we're very happy to make use of the resources they can bring to the table.
Lincoln, I would just like to add from an Orca's perspective that we have, the commission has just approved a new management plan for Turtleback that includes some extensive rerouting of trails and replacement of, I've forgotten the number, but something astounding like 23 culverts, a lot of work. And of course, we have a brand new Orca's acquisition on the west side on the slope facing San Juan. So I'd just like to take an opportunity to give a shout out to our stewards. And Peter Guillauze is here from Orcas and Amanda Wiedow from Lopez. You know, they're really the people who front the organization and who you're most likely to run into out on the land, really where the rubber meets the road. And they have an enormous job ahead of them. We've acquired a lot of good land and they've got a lot to do to steward it.
That's great. Thanks, Brian.
I feel like I thought somebody else had a hand up, but I was distracted by the chat. I know that I think it's very busy. A lot going on for the future, especially. I will also put a plug in. Peter took a November off, but he sure hosted, and also with the help of Andrew, gosh, I don't know, 3 a month since May. So 3 times 5, at least 15, maybe up to 20 public guided tours for the North Shore property to get folks out there. November is his little hiatus, but he's still busy at a conference. And then there will be 1 a month, December through, I think, March, the second Saturday. So if folks haven't made it out to the North Shore property, you can sign up on the page, the web page on the Land Bank's website, or email me and I'll connect you. But a lot of efforts to get folks out there to check it out, since it's not open for the public yet.
And Amanda Wiedow has done the same out at the new Watmow property, leading tours out there as well. So that's one of the things we're trying to do, even though they're not really ready for the general public. We are trying to get people out there just to show them what they've got and what they can look forward to.
And you can always volunteer to get out there.
True.
Lots of opportunities. You can always use help. I know it's not the most exciting, clearing weeds and cutting back blackberry, but there's also trail building and some fun stuff in the Gary Oak restoration areas. Planting plugs is always a fun one.
Yeah, plenty of stuff to do. In fact, I was talking to Doug McCutcheon, our San Juan Preserve steward today, and he's spending Monday out with 3 new preserve steward volunteers at Mount Grant. So he'll be training them, just people who turned up, who have a couple of whom are new to the community and just really wanting to participate. So it's a great thing.
Kathy.
I just have one quick thing to add. That one thing I learned is that the Rodale Institute, I'm sure most of you have heard of the Rodale publishing from way back then, but the Rodale Institute does research farms across the country, and they recently inherited the original Cascadian Farms, which is in Skagit Valley. So that's going to be close and a place to maybe go check out and visit, because those people are super helpful. Really interesting organization. Cool. So that's close by, because they're back east.
Yeah, that's great to know.
Yeah, no, it's exciting.
Thanks, Kathy.
Anybody else?
Well, it's definitely dark now.
Yeah. Although Got a nice view of the moon right now. Can't see it from my house. Well, if there's Roger and Anita say thanks, bye. If there's nothing else, I guess we'll see you all at our monthly meeting. Everyone will show up there. December 6th. No, what month are we in? November 18th is the next one, a week from this Friday.
Week from Friday. We'll be talking about budgets, what's coming up.
Great. Well, thanks to everybody that participated and showed up and took the time out. You can even make the contra dance for the Lopesians, I think.
I see we have somebody just new stepped in. Diana Stepida. Hi, Diana. We're going to close out a little bit early, it sounds like, and I just wanted to make sure there wasn't something that you wanted to ask or add. Whoops. She's gone. Oh, no, there she is. Are you there? All right. Well, it was worth a try.
Good effort, Jim. Good effort. Oh, wait, I have one new message. No. Sorry, let me get all the way to the bottom there. Oh, Diana just says, great job, double thumbs up. So we'll take that. Okay, well, thanks, everybody. I'm gonna sign off.
Thanks all for attending.
Thanks all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Think about becoming a commissioner.